Yeah. Okay, everybody, this is Information Man. I want to welcome you, those that have come into the chat room. I want to let everybody know that we have a very special guest on with me today. I have to give a big ups to Brother Yapo, who made this possible. He connected me with sister. This sister is Afrikan-Esq. Everybody, I want you definitely to listen to this interview. I'm going to interview the sister, find out a little bit about her, a little bit about her background, what got her on YouTube, what has gotten her involved in her Pan-Africanism, what she's about, how we need to connect ourselves to the motherland, because we're not an island to ourselves. We got to get out of the individual ideologies that we have. Living in America, we're inundated with individual, what you would call Eurocentric type values, where we separate ourselves. We talk about these risks between the black folks in the continent of Africa versus black folks here in America. No matter what boat we came off of in the diaspora of the world, we are still one heartbeat, one drumbeat of black people, and we need to break those barriers. And I think when I was in college, myself personally, I was involved in Pan-African philosophies. I'm going to be asking Sister Afrikan-Esq how Pan-Africanism is it relevant today for us as black people in America, and can it work without can Pan-African philosophy work if Africa itself, the African people, our people, black people, if they don't buy into the philosophy as well? What are the obstacles, and what are the success stories between crossing these barriers? Now, I know, and I've talked to you through other programs that I've done about how you got Ghana that's looking to give black people in America citizenship. I did a YouTube video in which I talked about the phenomena of African Americans moving to Africa. Okay, and we know what we deal with here. We deal with all-time racism, institutionalized racism, white supremacy, as some would call it. We deal with all these different issues, and you know what's happening today. We've got black men being shot in the street, black women being mistreated. We've got a president who seems to be endorsing the white supremacist construct, or the white supremacist system. Let me not say construct, system, when he says that those folks in Charlottesville were very fine people. So just to remind everybody, we are radio live. I'm broadcasting out of speaker.com. So this is going to hit all platforms, iTunes, iHeartRadio as well. It's going to hit Spotify. It's going to hit all the different platforms. We're on Facebook Live right now, and we're going to hit what else? What else we got cooking up here? We've got Archer, which I'll port this over to Archer. So pretty much this broadcast is hitting across the country as well as internationally. I've got folks out there in the speaker world that support me. So if you're out there, I want to say big ups to everybody on speaker.com that may be listening. I know there'll be more people coming into the program as we go along. Let me disengage my screen here so that we can see Sister Afrikan-Esq. So give me a minute so I can disengage from this sharing screen that I've got set up here. Let me stop that. Boom. And we're both live. I'm not showing any avatar. You're going to see my black self as I originally am. And sister. Seems like we've been playing a little email or Facebook cat and mouse. I've known about you for some time. I've watched you from afar. My mother actually is the one that told me about you. And I've been checking you out, and I've been saying, wow, she's dynamic. And I'm actually the brother who has inspired me, and is my man Dynast of Search for Uhuru. I like his style. I like how he brings people onto the program to talk about real issues, real solutions. And so after interviewing that brother and developing a little small YouTube relationship with him now, he has inspired me to go down this road. When I first started out doing my YouTube, I was doing the typical, let's report about, celebrity crap and, this black person. And as I'm evolving in my channel, I'm getting away from a lot of that. And most of my content is, if you ever have a chance to check it out, I'm really trying to get into more issues of solutions, more issue-based videos, and connect with our people, which is why I wanted to connect with you, because we need to hear more voices. And I believe personally that we are the new black media. the BETs, the TV ones, the Roland Martin types, they are out. They're not relevant anymore. More people are going online and looking at these platforms. And I was telling you the other day that Black Junction TV, I believe what Brother Youssef is doing over there may be the wave of the future for us to be able to really focus our material towards a Black audience without worrying about getting our channels flagged, getting shut down. And as I was on last night doing the story about what I feel is the fourth of their lies today, we had trolls trying to come in the channel, but luckily the folks that I have moderating were able to shut all that down. So with that said, sister, let me give you a much needed clap for being here, because I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks again for having me.
Thank you again. So with that said, and I want to be respectful of your time, sister. Where can I start here? Let me just say, and by the way, if you see me moving back and forth, my head swivering around, it's no disrespect to you. It's because I'm going to be using my phone here to send everything to social media. I'm going to viral the video. The video that I did last night went a little viral. I want to make sure this hits all areas of the world, all the platforms. So just keep that in mind. It's no disrespect to you. I'm just trying to hit buttons here. Make sure we get it out to everybody. And I'm sure people will be coming in little by little. Anyway, sister, I'm going to shut my mouth. What I got to say to you is, bottom line, I like your style. I like what you're about. Tell us as much as you can tell us, because you know, a lot of times people don't want to get into all their personal business in a situation like this. But tell us your origins. What brought you to the ideologies or to where you are today? Because I know when I was a kid growing up, I believed in a whole bunch of stuff. And when I went to college and took Black Studies courses at San Francisco State University, one of the first ethnic studies programs in the country, and I learned from the best, over to Shaka, Wade Nobles, brother Dr. Professor McGee, who passed away some years ago. I learned from the best, Dr. Richardson. I had a chance to rub shoulders a little bit with Sister Angela Davis, who taught there for a short time. Sister, what is your origins?
Well, the thing about me is I've been all over the spectrum as far as growing up and what I believed in. I grew up in a church, so originally a lot of my ideologies were more conservative, and I'm still in the church, but I'm not conforming to the culture, I would say. The typical culture, especially from the fact that Christianity is very colonized in the way that we get it in America and the way that people get it in Africa. But growing up in the culture as it is in America, which is westernized Christianity, I was very conservative in a lot of my beliefs. I didn't necessarily feel the plight of my people. But my mother was in the church. My father, he wasn't, and he's always been more pro-Black. So he would tell me things, and I kind of like, I don't know what you're talking about. But eventually, like, when I became a teenager, I think a lot of the things he would tell me started reverberating inside of my mind. So what I would say really changed was when I was a teenager, I started questioning more, and I wasn't accepting things as being, this is what it is. And one of the first things that I really questioned was the issue of gentrification. And I grew up in Pittsburgh, and I realized that more and more our people were being pushed out of places where they have inhabited for years and years and years. And I realized that industries were the ones that were pushing them out. And my analysis at that time, I was like, wow, it's crazy how Black people are treated like a disease that the society is trying to just get rid of. Yeah. We're not treated as someone that needs, people who are traumatized. We're not treated as people who need attention or services. We're treated as something to basically get rid of. And their way of getting rid of it was to just gentrify these places that I grew up in and that I had attachments to. So that was the first thing that I realized as far as understanding that, we as African people are treated so differently. And I think with everyone, it's just a process. So once you start thinking consciously, it's not going to be all at one time. You're not just going to question everything at one time. But the more I grew up, the more I started reading. I started reading Marcus Garvey. I started reading Malcolm, of course, so many different people. So in college, my way of interpreting all of this was I became pro-Black, but not so much Pan-Africanist. I was more like a liberal, I would say.
Okay.
So that was the way I kind of understood it at that time. The further I got in college, the more suspenseful or suspecting I became of the liberals, because when you realize that we're essentially the puppets of the Democratic Party, then you start questioning them. And so later on, I kind of became more separatist and more ideological, with like a Malcolm, who was a Black nationalist, and more of a separatist, to say that we don't have to integrate into their system. We have to get power on our own. So that's where I kind of ended up towards the end of college. But I think connecting the dots is what really brought me to Pan-Africanism. And just as far as understanding that these issues are not just for us, these issues are all over the world. Anywhere, like Marcus Garvey said, anywhere where you go where there are Black people, you're going to find the same things. You're going to find that the Black person is suffering from oppression. So if we're all facing the same evil, then there has to be something bigger going on. It can't just be us in America. So that's what essentially brought me to Pan-Africanism. I started reading more books. I think Stokely Carmichael or Kwame Ture, he's definitely one of the more influential people as far as where my ideology went. But that's basically my ideological journey. I've been all over the place.
Let me ask you a very honest question, sister. You said that you still, connect with the church. What is the perception that your friends or maybe family, because Black folks by nature, you said something about being conservative. Black folks by nature, and I'm talking outside of parties, because I had a chance to listen to a sister on Brother Dinish program. Her name is Sister Shirley, and she's a conservative, I guess, Republican. She's has an organization called Urban Game Changers. And she said that it's not so much about being in a party, it's about a philosophy, and that originally Black people, traditionally, Black people, when you look at history, traditionally had conservative values that which reach outside of just being a part of some political party. That in general, when you look at the Black family, it had more conservative values. I don't know if you agree with that or not, sister, but how does your family, first of all, what is your opinion on what I just said? Do Black people have traditionally more conservative values? Now, think about it outside of the box of the political system, the Republican, Democrat, all that stuff. Just get that out of there. Just in general, when you talk about just being conservative as a person.
And that's kind of where it's difficult to say, conservative values, because we call those conservative values, but all over the world, there are people who have nothing to do with conservatism. And, so we'll say something as far as, the stuff like in the 10 Commandments, this is not just Christianity. A lot of people believe that you're supposed to treat people a certain way. A lot of people believe that you're supposed to abstain from sex, or that you're not supposed to, there's a lot of rules that many people all over the world have. So I think that Black people, African people, if you look at history, we've always been a religious people. Before Christianity, it's always been a very religious society. And that's kind of one of the reasons that I think that the role Christianity has played in Africa was able to play such a significant role, because already these were very spiritual people. These are people who are very in tune with spiritual aspects. So I think those societies have a lot of times have similar values. So I wouldn't necessarily call them conservative values, but if we're thinking about in the context of the history of the United States, it's easy to say, well, Black people, they used to be Republican, but if you know the history of the Republican Party, a lot of the platforms completely switched. Originally the Republican Party wanted liberty, or the freedom from slavery. The Republican Party was more, I guess, for Black people, because I don't necessarily think anyone's 100% for Black people. But they were the Democrats in the past. What shifted, of course, was the Democrats, they took a different stance. They started becoming anti-segregation. And so it looked, I think you could say that it looks like we've always been conservative, but I think as far as our liberation, not necessarily. And the other thing you have to question is, to what degree were people, especially just coming out of slavery, were they able to develop their political maturity to think on your own, aside from what the oppressor has told you? So if you've been told your entire life that this is what's good, how long does it take to develop your own philosophy? So I think, I think it's too blanket of a statement is what I'm trying to say, all Black people always have had a conservative philosophy. There's reasons for that. And then I think that it takes a while for us to think aside from what we've been taught from our oppressor.
When you look at, let's say, for example, and I'm not necessarily endorsing this, I'm just saying these are some of the things you hear sometimes older Black people say. When you look at Black community as it was comprised some time ago, you said yourself there was a belief in religion, a spiritual belief. I'm more of a spiritual person than a religious person, by the way. But that's you've always had Black people. There was a time in the Black community where kids, you went to school, you respected your teachers, you didn't talk out of line, you were respectful to elders. Some would say that those are sort of, and I don't want to put things in a box, but people would say that that's kind of conservative values, that you respect one another. You don't get into this whole let people be whatever they want to be sort of thing. You go by traditional values in the family. The father is the matriarch, he's the head of the family. And all these little rows, boxes that we put people in. But I remember growing up, I grew up in a neighborhood where I could be spanked by my neighbors. If I was outside when the light turned on, the street light, I was getting a spanking from the old men in the garage playing checkers or drinking their Johnny Walker Red. Okay, then my mom comes home, I'm getting another spanking because she said, hey, you knew you wasn't supposed to be outside at this time. What are you doing outside? So I was raised sort of like in that old school fashion. I'm 48 years old. So I've been on the earth for a little while now, and I've had some experiences, some life experiences to see how, wow, things have really changed today and values are warping. And I'm saying, well, where can Black people go? Now, I don't know if you had a chance to look at any of my material, sister. I did I'm really intrigued by the Dogon. I'm really intrigued by what were Black people practicing in terms of African spirituality prior to Christianity, because Christianity and religions that as we know on the earth have not been on the earth as long as Black people. We're Black people, African people. We are ancient beyond our imagination, how ancient we are. And when you look at African spirituality and you look at all the different religions in the world, whether it be Buddhism, Islam, they're nothing. If you do the research, they're nothing but a bastardized version of African spirituality. Pretty much, if you look at the values, our African diaspora has had a big impact on the world, even though they won't tell us these true secrets. Okay, you go over to Tibet and some of these in places in the world, you can see where there was an African presence. And even when you look at the Aztecs here in America, they were really of African ancestry. And of course, I'm sure you're familiar with the book They Came Before Columbus by Ivan Van Sertima?
I'm familiar with it. I haven't read it yet, but yes.
Woo! You got to read that book. That brother talks about the African presence in America, what we call America today, 800 BC. And it even goes further back there when they thought that Black people, African people could not travel the world. And we know that the Moors, they discounted all of that because they controlled most of Europe, which is why Europe was in a dark ages. And from a dark ages, they came into what they call Renaissance, because it was the Africans, Northern Africans, that basically civilized them. But anyway, I'm all over the place here. But sister, so basically you evolved.
Well, I do want to comment on one thing.
Go ahead. I don't want to.
I don't, I think it's important that African people, I'm completely fine with us embracing the spiritual religions that originated with our ancestors. But it's also important to know that Africans are the ones that gave monotheism to the world. And that's one thing that is very little people know. People think that monotheism began over in Europe or Middle East or something. I think that we have to, the same way that we could be proud and claim the ancient religions, we also have to be proud and claim the fact that these religions came out of Africa. So, for example, a lot of people don't know that Abraham was an African man, the Abraham of the Bible. A lot of people don't know Moses was an African man. A lot of people don't know the Hebrews, and that's why you have to understand with Israel, these aren't the original Hebrews. The Hebrews were heavily mixed African people. So, you know, I'm just saying that to say that I believe in tolerance 100%. Like, that's why Malcolm to me was on such a pedestal, because he understood that there's no reason for us to argue about religion. Let's talk about what we agree on. But I just think that it's important for us to know that, you know, I think people give the white man too much credit. People say that,
thank you for saying that.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with True Royal Family, but if she was here, she would give you kudos for that, because I'm going to have to give you kudos. Because you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And I'm just saying, you know, we give the white man too much credit. For us, many of our people who are pro-Black, we say that Christianity is the white man's religion. You completely disregard the origins, you know? So even if you're not a Christian, if you're not a Muslim, if you're not a Jewish person that practices Judaism, by all means, like, this is something that also came from our people. And so we could be proud of multiple things, you know?
But what you basically, let me just ask you this, sister. Would you agree or not agree? What you just said to me is sort of what I'm basing, and that is everything we know about religion in the world, whether it be Buddhism, Islam, all these different religions as we know it, because they have not been on the planet as long as Black people have been living. That's the thing that people fail to understand sometimes. We always go with what's right in front of us. But my question is, what were we practicing prior to these organized systems? Because if you don't know, as James Baldwin always says, if you don't know what happened in your past, you won't understand what's happening all around you. My statement to you is that you just reinforced the philosophy, and that is that most of these other religions, as we know it as organized religion, they come out of African spirituality. So we're completely on the same page. And I like, repeat what you said. You said that a lot of people, or some people, sometimes do not realize that Africans brought rise to can you say that?
The Africans are the ones that originated monotheism. Abraham, who, at least as far as history, that's who they try to pinpoint. But of course, if you are someone who believes in Islam or the Bible, you believe in Adam and Eve, you know, but Abraham's the person that we usually start with. He was an African person. So a lot of people don't realize all of this originated in Africa, just as much as polytheism.
Let me read. We got a few people in the chat room. Someone says, I think Melanin Nation, Hebrew Israel was not on earth as long as Black humans were. Well, of course. I mean, exactly. We've been on the earth thousands of years. We got my man African Defender in here. We got August Dreams. Shanika Cat 73. We got my man COG. Welcome, brother. So we got Sunny Seas. I kind of like to give a little shout out to some of the folks in the chat room from time to time. But let's continue this discussion, because this is very interesting. So from my original question around this issue is, how is your family? Do you have members in your family that kind of look at you side-eyed and say, what's this Pan-African stuff you doing, girl?
Of course.
You need Jesus.
And, you know, I have siblings, some who are conservative, some who do whatever they feel, whatever. And, you know, I'm always very open. I think my family was more, I think that a lot of my journey as far as becoming Pan-Africanist and just becoming proud of being Black, originally it was definitely met with, you know, what are you doing? Especially, you know, I'm natural now, but I cut all my hair off and they're like, what are you doing? I think as time has gone, because this has been probably, it's probably been about almost 10 years now that I've been on this process. I would like to think that I've influenced them in some ways, and I'm never afraid to engage. I'm never afraid to question. I'm never afraid to get people to question things that we accept as normal. And you know, I had a conversation with one of my siblings who's very conservative, and who we were talking about Pan-Africanism, and I just explained to him, to me, as a Christian, if I know that my people are suffering, not just suffering, but no one's standing up for them, then how can I love others if I don't first love myself? And if I love myself, I have to love my community, because guess what? The Chinese community is not going to love me more than I love me. The Hispanic community, the white community, no one's going to love us more than us. And so I believe that you can completely be, just as you can be spiritual and Pan-Africanist, you can be a Christian and be Pan-Africanist, just as Malcolm was a Muslim who was Pan-Africanist. It's all just about understanding that you have to have a component of a radical component or a radical interpretation of your religion to increase Black, really just protect your people and help your people, you know?
Are you familiar with any, I believe, I've told people many times on these platforms that our future obviously lies in our children. There are going to be, what is your opinion on this? I seem to subscribe to the fact that there are going to be some of our people who we're not going to be able to sort of wake them up. So there's going to be a percentage of Black people that are going to get they're going to get awakened. They're going to learn, they're going to study, they're going to want to be around people who are like-minded, and they're going to go forward. And then they're going to be Black folks that are going to sort of say, what the hell are y'all doing? What is that? You know, and they're going to be, and my question is, how much are you willing, are we as a people willing to continue to invest in those Black people in our community who just are not going to take themselves to another level? And I'm not saying this to say that I'm better than anybody, that we're better than anybody, but I think a lot of times, how much time do we have to spend on people who may not be willing to come together and say, yeah, let's unite together. Okay, there's a small percentage of us that are going to move forward, and those that are going to be left in the wayside.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that, but it's just the reality.
No, that's absolutely the reality. To me, I think that, number one, giving our people opportunity is important. So giving us opportunity to at least hear about Pan-Africanism, to understand it, to hear about Black nationalism, to hear about Black liberation, you know, giving them the opportunity to understand it. We have to keep in mind, Malcolm, I forget the brother's name, who he was in prison, but before he converted to the Nation of Islam, he was completely disregarded the pro-Black ideology. So it was someone who constantly worked with him, who actually got him. And maybe that person's seen something in him particularly, because certainly there's some people, it doesn't matter how often you talk to them, they're just not going to agree. So I think that it's important to give people opportunity and understand that I will keep quoting Malcolm because it's my favorite, one of my favorites, but
I love Malcolm X.
like he said, you know, you can't judge people for thinking things that you don't believe, because at some point in your life, you did not believe what you believe right now. Like I've just told you about my journey. At one point in my life, I wasn't a Pan-Africanist. At one point in my life, I was completely conservative. So how can I, you know, judge people who say these things and not understand that, hey, there's a process. So at one level, there is definitely giving people opportunity to understand. You might just drop seeds of knowledge, and you might not be the one to see that seed come into fruition. It might be someone down the line. Like I said, my father dropped seeds of knowledge in my head when I was a kid, but it really wasn't until I grew up and started experiencing the Black experience in a different way that his seeds eventually did come up and mean something. So opportunity aside, like I said, you might not be the person to see that come into fruition. So what do you do whenever you have someone who still says, I don't care, I'm not getting involved with this? I say you let them go on their own process, and hopefully they will understand. But there are people who won't understand. And, you know, Marcus Garvey said, you know, not everyone is going to come to Africa, you know, and you can use that as a literal location, or you can use that as a mindset. Not everyone is going to be willing to completely emancipate themselves from the system. There's also the issue of people and who have bought into the American idealism. There's people who really buy into that this is the best country to be a part of in the world. You are so lucky to have been born here. You're so lucky to have been a descendant of slaves, and now you get to be an American. And they've been given this so many years from the education system, and it's been so ingrained into our minds that to them, when you say, hey, this system is founded on the suffering of our people and benefits to this day, and it's still taking resources from our people. So how could we be so in love with, you know, being a part of this? They can't, it's cognitive dissonance. They can't understand it. And that's where, you know, it's funny. I did, I don't know if you've seen it, I did a video on Yvette Carnell's denial of Pan-Africanism. And I got a lot of, you know, types of angry comments, but I had to understand that at the end of the day, if you come at someone's worldview that they have accepted, a lot of times it's uncomfortable. And so when things are uncomfortable, you get backlash.
Well, I think Yvette Carnell, her point of view, she's very focused on Black people in America and what's due us here, and how the political and how she doesn't see us spending, she doesn't feel that we should spend as much time. Let me not speak for her. I get the impression, let me say that. I get the impression that she feels that Black people need to focus on Black people's issues here in America as it relates to what we have due to us, such as whether it be reparations, whether it be the fact that we need to focus on our economic issues, not get caught up by wingsters and shysters that will lead us into you know how you have people out there that will lead Black people, because Black people sometimes tend to have, some can have a Messiah complex where we're willing to follow someone.
Absolutely.
Tell us the right type of tonic in the bottle, right? And so, and I agree. And then, you know, she talks about that. And then we have a philosophy of people who believe, well, the Africans haven't done anything for us. I was listening to a brother, Pharaoh Says This, and he went in pretty strong, if you're familiar with him, on Africa, basically saying that Pan-Africanism, which is why I brought this up to you earlier, can't work unless the Africans themselves are invested in Pan-Africanism. He says that we as Black people in America will have African festivals, we'll wear the clothing, we'll do all these different things to celebrate Africa. But he feels like, is it being translated back to us from Africa as well? And his whole attitude is that if they're not pushing and pushing for us, then the hell with Africa if they're not doing for us, because he sees Africa as a absentee father, that Black people, and I think a lot of Black people, well, I think some Black people have these thoughts that, wow, you know, we were put into slavery. Why didn't they ever come back and get us?
Which is crazy.
Okay, why didn't they come back and get us? Right. But let's keep this in mind. We are not the only Black people in the world. Matter of fact, Black people in America, only 4% of us were dropped off here. The majority of us were dropped off in South America. I got this Brazilian shirt on. I got people out there that I know in Brazil. I connect with. There's lots of Black folks out there. They have just as much right to say, hey, why haven't they come for us? God damn it, more of us are over here. I know I'm getting a little emotional, but you know, sometimes you got to say that which based in some truth.
Right. No, I completely agree. And the thing with Yvette Carnell, and I said this in my video, I really do agree with a lot of things that she does say, and I think she's very brilliant. My issue with her was the blanket statement, Pan-Africanism is dead. And then, you know, some of her tweets. But yeah, it's interesting. A lot of our people, I think we don't understand Pan-Africanism. So the guy that you were just referencing, who says that, well, you know, Africa is basically in distress. So if they don't have Pan-Africanism, how can we have it? You don't understand how Pan-Africanism originally came about. When you read books about how this originally happened, you find out that, first of all, a lot of us were sold into slavery. Some Africans participated in the selling. Not all of them did. Don't become confused about that. It was not a mass conspiracy to send Black people away to America, but some of them did participate. A lot of them didn't. When you read about the Africans, particularly like in the Caribbean, You know, there was a lot of conscious Africans always. A lot of the Pan-Africanists came out of the Caribbean, but also some in America. You find out that they were leading up to colonialism, because of course the slave trade happened before colonialism. They were very antsy because they knew that the Europeans were eyeing Africa, and having experienced the oppressor, they wanted to do something to prevent this. And that's essentially when then eventually Africa did become colonized and it was enslaved. And it really wasn't that they didn't want to embrace Pan-Africanism. What you find out is that there was an intentional conspiracy from the European colonists to keep Pan-Africanism out of the continent. So, for example, Marcus Garvey's, what's his newspaper?
Oh, God. Wasn't it called
Black
Star
newspaper or something?
Or something? I might be wrong.
Okay, Marcus Garvey had a newspaper from, I think it might have been a Black Star Liner or something. His writings were banned from the colonies. So there was an intentional conspiracy to keep Pan-Africanism from going into Africa. If you were found with a copy of one of his newspapers or his writings, you could face severe consequences. So meanwhile, us in America and many of us in Caribbean, we were meeting, even going to Europe and having conferences in order to strategize with Pan-Africanism. So it's really a misunderstanding of history to think that, well, you know, why didn't they get together? And even today, I could tell you from my experience, a lot of the issues in Africa, I think, are that in America, we tend to be more conscious, I think, than people over in the continent, and people in Caribbean too. The reason being is because we have an identifiable oppressor. So the white cop shot the black kid. We know who the oppressor is. The white man denies me a job. We know who the oppressor is. In Africa, these are black people, black faces that are doing these things. Black presidents that are taking money. The European presence in Africa, and a lot of time is hidden. These are bribes, these are deals that are being done completely behind the back of the African people. So it's very hard. I think Kwame Nkrumah said that the issue with neocolonialism is that it robs the African leader of reproach, and it robs the African people of and having an identifiable oppressor. So we can't take that for granted, the fact that we could see who our oppressor is, and that's why we are more motivated to do something about it, whereas the neocolonialism is impossible to see. It's intentionally impossible to see what is going on as far as people what are they doing behind the scenes.
Let me read something to you, sister. Somebody in the chat room said, I think this is Sirius Z that said this. He states here, Black American problems is a global problem. It's going to take a global solution to solve it. Slavery was a global industry. This is what Yvette needs to understand. Yes. What are your thoughts about that, sister? It's a powerful statement that he put in the chat room.
It's very powerful. And, you know, that is, let me first say, I have no problem with people with working with people who might not be Pan-Africanists, because I believe that, hey, where we do agree, let's agree. And where we don't agree, let's not agree. But it's more of the, you know, the idea of going out. I don't go after people's philosophies, really. I don't go out and say, hey, you believe in reparations. That's stupid. Why do you believe that? You shouldn't believe that. This is why it's not going to work. Like, at the end of the day, if you're saying something that could have some truth to it, then by all means, do what you got to do. And I'm going to do what I have to do. So to say that, but basically, I absolutely agree that the issue is we don't understand that our problems can't be solved domestically. And that's really why Malcolm wanted to take it out of the Congress and take it out of the presidency and the Supreme Court and go to the United Nations, because his idea was these are global problems. These are human rights problems. The United States have well shown us that they're not going to address these problems. So we have to take it out of their jurisdiction. Similarly, these are global problems in that African people, they're suffering from the same oppressor. So why would you want to limit your options? Why would you not want to connect with people who are facing the same thing? And, you know, the thing is, Pan-Africanism, it works best if we're all working together. But I think we kind of, Africans in America, I think that we kind of stroke our egos too much, because we think that we're needed. We're not necessarily needed, you know, for this to work. As you said, we're only, I'm sorry.
No, let me just say this. I was fascinated by what Farrell says this, because he said that because Black people went through the civil rights movement, we got our asses kicked. We worked to create, I guess, what we feel are laws or initiatives to help us go to school or any of these social type programs that were created out of the civil rights movement. His whole attitude is that when the African comes to America, we don't, as Black people in America, feel that we have to take any disrespect from any groups that we come over here that we deem as immigrants, including the Africans, brothers and sisters from Africa, because his philosophy is that, hey, we have paved the way for you to be able to walk down the street during a time when we would have gotten our asses kicked every damn minute, okay? So that when people come over here from other countries and disrespect Black people, we're very upset. We get upset about it because we feel that, wait a minute, the reason why you're able to go to school, my African brothers and sisters, because our ancestors got our asses kicked out there in the streets. So he's coming from that perspective. But then there's another perspective, sister. And if you want to answer either one of those questions, when I was talking to Brother Dynas, and I had already known this, but the brother enlightened me more because he's traveled Africa very extensively over the years. He said that one of the things that Black people have to understand in America is that in Africa, they don't necessarily teach the kids when they grow up about African American history. So if I grow up in Africa, Nigeria, South Africa, any of the different places in diaspora there, Dogon country, okay, Kenya, Senegal. If I grew up there and I don't know anything about African American history because that's not what's taught to me, how can you expect me, when I do come over here to this country, if I'm able to, how do you expect me to understand the plight of African American people when that's not taught to me in the country that I live in, which has been colonialized by Europeans? And then on the flip side of that, African Americans, we don't know that much about Africa because for the most part, we've been colonialized. And sister, I'm about to do a video about, I'm going to do a live stream about Memoranda 46. Because from the very day, going all the way back to Carter's time, there has been a systematic plot by this government of the United States to keep Black people away from African people on the continent, to keep us divided and conquered. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And that was really the threat of Marcus Garvey, because he's calling for all of us to identify ourselves with each other, which is why he was viewed as a threat to United States security. But that's absolutely with the education thing. I didn't realize that if you talk to many Africans, they don't even know about their own history. A lot of times the education is the colonial education. So they know about Queen Elizabeth. They know about King whoever, whatever. They know about Europe. They're taught European history. Yeah. Hardly any of them are taught about Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara. They're intentionally not taught about their own history. So you know for sure they're not being taught about our history. And a lot of times the only depiction that they get of us before coming here is from movies. And we know that the Hollywood does not show a good representation of Black people. And even whenever Hollywood does show civil rights movies, we're shown things like, you know, and this is no hit on Martin Luther King, but we're shown a watered down version of Martin Luther King, and things like Selma, or we're shown Thurgood Marshall. You know, we're not shown things about Marcus Garvey. You know, we have to thank God that Spike Lee was able to get Malcolm X done, and we know that that wasn't funded by white people. He had to go to the Black actors and Black moguls, Bill Cosby and Oprah, in order to get that film done, or it would never have been done. So there's absolutely no way for them to know about our struggle. The other thing that I did notice a lot of people saying about immigrants who come here is that they not just don't show us respect, but also they take part of the benefits that should be given to us, and that robs us of opportunities. And about the respect part, I know that there are some Africans that are disrespectful to Black Americans. I also know Black Americans that are disrespectful to Africans. To me, I would rather not do what Europeans do, which is label a whole people something based off of a few people who might say ignorant things. The same way that I know many Black people who love Africans, and I would never want those ones that don't to be the representation of how Black people feel. So that's as far as the respect component. But as far as them taking part with affirmative action and the things that, you know, we did get and we did win, that's kind of the negative thing about colonialism. We have to understand that if we don't fix this issue of colonialism, neocolonialism, to where Africans do not control their own resources, we're going to be fighting with our own brothers and sisters to get opportunities inside of the countries that we're forced to live in. And there's not going to be enough to go around, because in this system, we're all going to get screwed. If we don't understand that if Africa doesn't control its own resources and we are not able to develop our own land and create our own economic opportunities, we're going to be struggling for the breadcrumbs that we get from this system. So this is going to be a problem regardless of anything.
You're absolutely right. What are some of the, you talk about the criticisms. Now, there are people who believe that we're wasting our time about bringing up the issues and pushing the issues of pan-Africanism. And there are some that would criticize Marcus Garvey and say that Marcus Garvey was for the lack of a better word, that he was a con man as well. Okay. Mm-hmm. There are Black people that will say, well, you know, Marcus Garvey, reason why he got in trouble with the feds. And we know damn well that this crow and tail has been going on for a long time. Even back in those times, they were watching Black groups, trying to break them down, trying to destroy them, as they did with the Black Panther Party. They infiltrated the party. And I watched a video, Brother Sinetta, on his channel. He did a video in which there was a brother, I can't call him a brother, but he had a Black man, so-called Black man, who admitted that he was an agent and he would go into the Black community and infiltrate Black organizations. Mm-hmm. Okay. What are your opinions on the criticism that Marcus Garvey has been levied by people who would say, well, yeah, he did do something criminal. That's why he got caught and booted out of here. What is your opinion on that issue? Mm-hmm. And what is have you had any experience with encountering people who you thought were possibly an agent, meaning trying to destroy Pan-Africanism, trying to infiltrate organizations, maybe an organization that you're a part of? Have you experienced any of this?
Well, I'll answer the second one first.
Okay. Yes. That is a two-part question.
I haven't had that experience yet. So the Federation African Liberation, that's the organization I've started with a number of activists. We just now got incorporated, and so we're not at that stage yet. However, the important thing for us to do whenever we do start organizations is we have to talk about what if. So what if we do have an agent? How are we going to handle that? What if the government is, you know, what they did in COINTELPRO, they would send messages to Huey P. Newton saying, well, Eldridge Cleveland says blah, 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 blah. And then he's thinking it's from Eldridge. And so he's going to respond to him. How do we make sure that there's no miscommunications? What type of procedure? And that's what I think that we have to do to protect ourselves from a COINTELPRO, because realistically, anyone could pretend to be for your organization and join your organization. So how do you create an organization that is not going to necessarily be wiped out from the government? But as far as Marcus Garvey, anyone who knows COINTELPRO and knows the things that were happening, first of all, you should have an automatic benefit of the doubt whenever you see that someone was convicted when J. Edgar Hoover was the head of the FBI, because we know that he identified him as being a threat to the United States because of what he wanted to do with connecting Africans to Africans in America to Africans in the continent, as well as Africans in the Caribbean and Europe and everywhere. Knowing that, you have to be very critical of any type of charges. With the charges of Marcus Garvey, there's really no proof. I mean, that has been shown. We also know that there's a lot of people trying to get him, what's the word? Exonerated? No.
No. Let me tell you something. I was listening to my man Joe Madison of Sirius XM Radio. I'm giving him a plug as if he needs a plug. I love Joe Madison. He had there was a brother who who called in who's from the Caribbean, who was pushing the idea that if African American people would support a Random would call their politicians because they were trying to get a pardon for him. Mm-hmm. And it was when I have my problems with Obama. And a long time ago, I met Obama and he gave me a promo. And I got to play this promo.
This is Barack Obama. If you're listening to Information Man, don't forget to subscribe.
That's before I knew that he was sort of, oh God, I could say the C word for him, but that's what I became.
A white man in blackface.
Yeah, white man in blackface. I became disenchanted with him. Do you know that he was in office? And that,
yeah, I know. Yeah.
Joe Madison, along with the brother, I can't think of the brother's name, who was trying to get Marcus Garvey a pardon. They were trying to do it at the 11th hour, 12-hour clock before Obama was out of office, and Obama did not do it. Yeah. Did not do it.
Nope.
Okay, it's a damn shame. Okay, see, this is the thing. We got, I don't want to go too deep down that road. We got bamboozled. We got hoodwinked. We got knocked over the head. We got run amok with Obama. Right. I do my studies that everyone that you see that becomes president, there's a bigger power behind them. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bilderberger Group. They are a group that meet in secret every 2 years. They really are the ones that control what's happening in this world. They determine who's going to be president. They manipulate this to do the social engineering like you have with Donald Trump. Okay. Yeah. Donald Trump, damn it, where's my document I wanted to read to you? Donald Trump, there's an old quote from the 25-point plan for world domination under the Rothschild family. It talks about using people as symbols to make you think that they're the ones in power to create a system when there's something bigger behind them. Donald Trump is simply a puppet. There's something, there's a bigger engine behind him. There's a reason why he came right after Obama. Okay. They put us to sleep with Obama. You know, we celebrate out there in the streets. Woo! Yes, dancing around. They put us to sleep with Obama and get us ready for Donald Trump to bring the clock right on back. And that's what's happening.
I mean, the thing that has to be questioned from Black people, you know, so as far as being a president, what does it mean to be a good president? When you look at the things that we essentially measure as being a good president, oh, the economy is good. Oh, the nation is safe from this, that, and the third. All of these things necessitate that the president be a pro at being an imperialist, because the only reason the United States is not susceptible to certain attacks is because you have people like Obama ordering drones to bomb. Many times it ends up being civilian population, but people that are perceived as being terrorists, you know. And then, of course, in order for the United States economy to be well, the United States exploitative relationship with third world countries has to be in place. So America has to be benefiting from the economies of other people who are poor. So there's no way you can be a president in the United States and be seen as a good president without being an imperialist.
Exactly. There's some that would say that we live in a what do you call it? God damn, what's that term? A polyocracy. And a polyocracy is when every 4 years to 8 years, we vote in the next, what do you call it? The elite. So if you notice, what all these presidents have in common is that they've all have been involved in some organization, whether it be Masons, Freemasonry. They've been involved in going to Yale, all the little Ivy League schools, and in particular Yale, because Yale is where they have Skull and Bones. And I'm very familiar with these sort of secret societies. Bill Clinton, Bush, they all have been a part of Skull and Bones. I worked at a Masonic home for retired people that were in Masons. And I went into this library and I was blown away because it went all the way back to George Washington and even further, of individuals that were part of Masons. So there's always been this secret, this other, that you would call this other world that's controlling everything that goes on. And Obama, no doubt in my mind that he was handpicked. He was handpicked. He was what I would call a designer Negro. Back in the day, they used to have the designer jeans when I was a kid. Obama was a designer Negro, very much prepared to put, like I said, to put us to sleep, and in fact, I would say to get us away from wanting to connect with our people in Africa. Do you know that I've had some problems with Michelle Obama as well. Do you know that Michelle Obama is involved with the she's on the Council for Foreign Relations?
I don't know that.
Which has done horrible things like Afrikan to the continent of Africa. So that's not an organization that she's cozied up with that is in the best interest of African people globally.
Right.
What are your thoughts about Afrikan?
I'm actually not aware of what it is exactly.
Okay. Afrikan, what was that movie that came out? What was that damn movie? That movie was a metaphor to Africa. What was that movie where you had the animation? You had
Black Panther.
Not Black Panther. It was a movie. Can somebody in the chat room give me a reminder? There was a movie that came out. It was an animated movie where you had people that lived in this little world, and then you had people from the outside trying to take over the resources. What was the name of that damn movie?
Avatar?
Avatar. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
You know that Avatar is nothing but that movie was about Africa.
Oh yeah.
It's the same themes. People coming in from the outside to take resources, to take and to pillage and destroy. Afrikan is the same thing. What they do, and it's a part of that damn foreign relations stuff, is that Afrikan is America's way of trying to go into Africa, put on this big happy face that, oh, we're over here for humanitarian reasons. We're over here giving them irrigation, fixing roads. We're with the people. Then they put on those damn commercials like they do when they go to Africa and they show somebody who's got a big belly and they're hungry, and they tell you all you need to do is send us 25 cents to help them, and then they turn off the goddamn cameras and go on to the next village. It's all marketing, right? So in Africa, you got Afrikan, the military, American military is over there doing this good Samaritan stuff, when in fact the true goal is to control the resources, to keep an eye on Africa, to have a foothold. And sister, that's the Afrikan system is not benefiting African people. It is simply another form of occupation. Now, I got to go into classroom mode here. And I know, sister, that you know this, but I got to ring the bell for class. Come on in class, everybody. Got to ring the bell. What was World War I fought over? Everybody in the chat room and Sister Afrikan-Esq. What was the reason why the world went into World War I? What was the reason why?
Well, what we were told in school was it was about an assassination of some leader, but you can enlighten me further.
Okay, everybody in the chat room should know because they've heard me run my mouth about this. World War I came about primarily over what? It was Africa. World War I happened primarily because of the world was wondering who's going to control the resources of Africa. See, you got to keep this in mind. Okay, there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, the more things change in our society, the more they remain the same. What do you have going on in Africa right now? You talked about this, sister. You got the Chinese going over there, killing us softly with their little, oh, we're going to fix roads. We're going to do the same thing. World War I was what? You had the Belgians, the Dutch, you had the French, which is why you have black people in Africa speaking French. The French Legion, they were colonizing. The British were going over there colonizing, as we already know, colonialism, baby. You had the United States getting their foothold over there. It was over who's going to control, as they call it, the dark continent, right? And that's why that war was fought primarily over the resources and control of the continent. The same damn thing is happening today. There's not a war, conventional war, but there is a war of the minds for our mind as we see Africa and for the African people over there. Now, I've heard, I was listening to Brother Dinus on his show. I've heard him have guests on there who are either living in Africa, who have traveled there, saying that the Chinese are doing great business. And I'm concerned about that because give me 1 minute right now. Give me 1 minute. Grab this book I've got. Here's this book. There it is, The Art of War. I'm very concerned because I believe that the Chinese are using the art of war, which is to kill you slowly, kill you softly, befriend you, build up the infrastructure. Now, if you know, sister, in China, their air quality is poor over there. They're not going to be able to sustain themselves. And what they're doing is what an alien from another planet does, metaphorically, that is, because I believe black folks are the original extraterrestrials. We come from dark matter. Dark matter is not just a color, it is a frequency. Study comedic science and realize that we come from the universe. Black holes created melanin, which we're made of. The universe was created of it. So understand that the Chinese and Europeans are concerned about their survival, where they're going to live in the world, and they're colonizing Africa by doing it, by saying, we're your friend, we're going to build up your infrastructure, and then to such a point to the time that they will do what? Take it all over.
Yeah.
We have to be very careful about the Chinese. Very careful.
Yeah, definitely.
I want you to speak upon that because I listened to some of your videos. You broke it down very nicely. Give me your opinions on what you know from your studies, from your connections of what's going on, from your opinion.
As far as China, you're right?
Yes, yes, sister, yes.
Well, China, and we have to understand, the way that originally colonialism worked was you would have the colonists go into Africa with arms, and they essentially tried to take over the country and be the one who creates the government, and everything would be a European government, although it was in black countries. I think from the experiences, as far as if you don't know, after World War II, a lot of the African countries were no longer tolerant of the colonial system as it was, meaning we fought for you and you think you're still going to tell us what to do. We deserve to be self-governing. So essentially the European powers had to scramble to figure out a model that would work. And that's where we get neocolonialism. I think what China does, and I said this on my video, I think they're very observant on what we will and will not tolerate. So at this point in time, African people are not going to tolerate China coming in with guns at first and saying, oh, we're going to create a new government, it's going to be Chinese. They would not tolerate that. However, they do know and study that we are willing to tolerate a neo-colonial system where you have people who are, you know, it seems like they're developing Africa because, oh, well, they built this building and therefore they love us. But really, these people are making deals that are going to make your country a country that's in poverty. I would encourage everyone to read the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where it really breaks down how the systems are able to control Africa. And the way that they're able to control Africa is by selling. Yep.
There it is.
Yeah, and it looks like these are charitable organizations, the World Bank and the IMF. It seems like these are charitable organizations. They're going to develop our country. They're going to build buildings, but you don't know what the cost is of these projects that they're doing. They might build you a road, but you don't know that that road is going to have your country in debt that cannot be paid back. And when a debt cannot be paid back, your country is essentially going to be a slave to that regime. So what you see happening in China is I think they've learned from the European experience and they're making it better. They're or not better for us, but better for them. So they are building many things in Africa. A lot of the buildings and things that you'll see now are built by Chinese people. So it appears that they're doing things for us, but really you need to understand what is the cost of this, who is getting paid for it. There was the issue in, I think it was either Guinea or Gambia, I forget which one, I think it might be Gambia, where the Chinese, there's a Chinese company that is polluting the environment so bad that they're putting their waste into a river, and the people drink from this river and they eat from this river, they fish from this river. The river is now basically toxic. Instead of the government telling this company to get in line, the presidency has essentially told the people that they need to allow this to happen, that they can't stop the Chinese from doing this. So what is it that is making this president stick up for the people who stick up for the Chinese institution that is polluting the river? Clearly, these bribes that are taking place behind closed doors that we might not see, but we know are happening, is what is driving the political landscape. And so, you know, we don't know yet the extent to Chinese involvement, but you have to know that it's very significant. Especially where you have things like Zimbabwe, they had something to do with the military ousting Mugabe. But anyways, as far as my last video, I was talking about there's a change in the Chinese policy that they announced that they're now going to be sending Chinese military into Africa in order to protect their investments and to sell arms to African people. This is their new policy. And as I said in my video, you have to know this was planned prior to them doing it. This is not something that they just came up with. So now you're going to have Chinese soldiers essentially probably committing acts of violence on African people in order to protect Chinese interests. So, and back to what I was saying before when I first started off, when you look at colonialism versus neocolonialism, it appears to be different because you don't have a government that is essentially telling you this is our government, this is our country, we're going to tell you what to do. But as far as the goals being accomplished, the same goals are happening. The same things are being accomplished, even though it might not be China saying this is our country. If they're making these deals with these politicians to obtain the resources of the people, to obtain mines, to obtain natural resources that should be belonging to these people who are already in severe poverty, that's the same thing as colonialism.
One of the things that I'm concerned is that the Chinese, if you look at, you got to judge a tree by the fruit that it bears, okay?
Yeah.
China is already destroying their own country. Their air quality is poor. And so whatever people do in their own country, what the hell you think they're going to do? They're going to make a toilet bowl out of your country. I'm afraid that they're going to come over and they're going to impact the environment. You've already got Donald Trump, and I call him Donald Chump, and that administration that believes that climate change is not real. Well, let me tell you something. When I did my research in my video that I put together about the Dogon, and I used, Brother Dinas was gracious to let me use some footage when he was over in Dogon country, and he talked to some of the priests, and they said that he talked to, I mean, man, it was beautiful seeing him over there, but he said that the land that the Dogon live in is nothing but desert now, that the animals have left, the forests have been destroyed because of climate change and environmental impact. So when you got these foreigners, and I call them foreigners, you have these invaders coming over there, like the Chinese, whatever they're doing to the environment that they've done to their own damn environment is going to destroy the natural habitats that Black people live in the diaspora of Africa. And it's unfortunate because the Dogon are living in a desert, very tough conditions, in a part of West Africa and Mali that had very great landscape, God knows how many years ago, that's being destroyed, impacted by environment, because people use in the world globally, they use Africa as their dumping ground. Do you know, sister, that when they have makeup products that women use here in America, the ones that have problems that are duds, they send to Africa and let Black women and people in Africa use faulty products that are being sent from America. Talk about economic hitman here. I have to ask you this question. Let me see. Brother Matthews in the channel says there are no two capitalists. They're capitalists. That's why there is two Washington states, one in the District of Columbia. Okay, he's talking about something a little bit different. Let me just say here, I've done my research, sister. You took a trip to Africa. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, recently.
All right. Tell me, or tell the audience out here by listening, what was your experience on your journey to Africa?
First of all, I loved it. You know, my husband's from Ghana, so I finally got to go visit with him. It's a very brief trip. We're going to make more trips, and I hope to eventually start going other places other than Ghana. And that's really our plan as far as where we're going to end up once we've established ourselves to where we can move to Africa. I observed a lot of things outside of the beauty of Africa, the beauty of the people, the community setting, the fact that, you know, like you were saying, how you were raised as far as it was more communal. It's a lot of that still remains intact, even with colonialism. And a lot of the love that you feel is very strong there. Some things that I noticed that were negative, and this goes into what we were talking about earlier with Christianity. I would say in recent years in the West, Christianity went from being something with the Quakers, or not the Quakers, the Puritans, to being some type of prosperity grabbing religion where you sell people hope, and they think and hope that, oh, well, if I do this, then I should be able to, if I give my offering, I should be able to get what I want. And that has taken over us in here in America, but so much more so in Ghana. I mean, I noticed every single block, I mean, not even block, everywhere you walked, there was some type of poster for some type of revival, there was some poster for some type of service, some type of church, to the point where my mindset was, okay, why is there so many different types of churches? But then as far as talking to people that live there and talking to my husband more, what I realized is that the economic scene is so bad there, because as I said, the resources that Africa has, that is so rich in resources, is not able to be a benefit to the people, because they are they're occupied by outside people. Mm-hmm. Because of that, the African people in their own home country are at the will of these outsiders to give them jobs. Most of the people don't have jobs. They have to try to find some type of thing to be their job. And I really think that that's what happens as far as with these religious, with these Christian groups, is that instead of these being people who have a sincere conviction, a lot of times you're seeing people who they don't know what else to do for a job. And so they put on something as a preacher and they sell people hope and they get their offering, because you might not get a job out there selling this, that, and the third, but you could get a job from selling people hope. So, you know, those are the things some of the things I observed. I understood more, as I said in a video I did, that the reason why so many Africans leave the continent, a lot of them, I think we're given this image that they hate Africa, they want to escape it. A lot of them love it there. A lot of them don't want to leave, but it's the fact that the economic system is so severe that there's really no way to provide for your family and try to have a decent life if you don't leave. So, you know, a lot of times you talk to people, their intention is to basically get enough money to where they can go back to Africa and live a livable human, you know, a life that isn't degrading, basically. So that was another thing I really understood. You know, Africans, they don't hate most of them don't hate where they're from. They love it, but they are forced the same way that we are forced in America to work for racist corporations or work for things that we might not agree with. They are similarly forced to try to leave their continent and find some type of economic opportunity, whether it be in Europe or whether it be in America.
Wow. Have you considered, if you haven't already, sister, you've heard the announcement some time ago that Ghana is issuing a declaration to African-American people to become like dual citizens. So now you have a citizenship in Ghana as well, I guess here as well. Have you, since your husband is from Ghana, that's fantastic. Have you considered that, or what are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's definitely, I mean, to me, I feel like I have a mission here that cannot necessarily be accomplished from there. And a lot of that is because of being an American citizen does give you the benefit of having a say in the American government, at least in theory. So there are things that I would like to accomplish, but absolutely, at some point, we're definitely moving there to live there, you know, as soon as we're able to.
Okay. Let me see. Your organization, where is it mainly based?
So right now, there's 4 people who basically came together. One of them is my friend Frank Moba. Another friend, Pierre, who's in Chicago, Frank's in Philly, and then Dwayne Omawale is he's in Florida. And a lot of, as far as the national organization, is based in Newark. However, we do intend on having local chapters at some point. But as far as what we're doing right now, it's more so us planning from online. There's another person who I connected with recently, and we're looking to create a human rights committee. And that's where I would say my legal background is really going to be utilized, as far as I'm reading more about human rights and I'm learning about it. And the idea that the UN is this body that's actually going to do what it's supposed to do. you know, it's appalling the things that are happening and the fact that there are so many declarations that were created in the UN that's supposed to protect us. And it's not to say that we need to go after human rights because the UN is actually going to do what it's supposed to do, because we should know that the UN is controlled by America and controlled by the Europe anyways. However, I think it's important as far as educating ourselves on the hypocrisies to call out these nations that say that they're human rights advocates and say, well, if you're a human rights advocate, how are you allowing this, that, and the third to happen? How are you allowing environmental racism and to where people in Flint are given lead water? How are you allowing, how are you protecting the economic rights of people when you are allowing neocolonialism to run rampant throughout Africa and the Caribbean? Mm-hmm. So that is, the human rights aspect, that's something that I'm definitely going to be putting a lot of my effort into.
Okay, human rights. Human rights. Where would you, I think I was saying earlier that, and I might have gotten off point here, I believe that our future is through our children. Mm-hmm. And that the minute our children are born, I have a 10-year-old daughter, the minute our kids are born into the world, they need to be exposed to these sort of philosophies, these ideologies in terms of their love for themselves. First of all, this is what I believe. You hear people say the term pro-black right now. And I almost feel like pro-black is almost becoming like a fad, like when people were wearing the Malcolm X hats. It's just something to say right now. My ideology is that, no, it's not about being pro-black. It's about I'm black first. Because see, when I was born into the world, I was black first. I was black before I was any religion. I was black before I was inundated by this society that we live in. It's the socialization that makes you what you think you are. That's the key word, what you think you are, because you've been socialized by society. I believe that we have to be black first. And with that, we must give our kids a black ideology. That's a socialization, but it's a socialization about who they are. Because if I was to go in my pockets right now and pull out my money, what are you going to see? You're going to see white men who were slave owners on the dial on your money. When you go outside and you look at your billboards. Now, I'm from Baltimore, Maryland originally. I live out here in Northern California. Yeah, from Baltimore, Maryland. I got family in North Carolina, DC, that whole area. And I go back and visit when I can. It's been a while since I've been back there, but I'm gonna make a trip. What I noticed when I was back there, clearly that in the more whiter areas of Baltimore, you didn't see any. At that time, you had the cigarette ads, which I guess they've gotten rid of that now. You had the cigarette ads, the liquor ads in our community, but in the whiter communities, you didn't see that. See, so instead of allowing someone to teach our kids, or as you hear the term history, have someone tell you their history, we must teach our history to our kids, whether it be through a Pan-African perspective, whatever perspective we have. To me, it is most important that we reinforce our kids with this perspective, because if you haven't looked at the studies on this, sister, when black children are in school from the preschool to elementary school age, before getting into what you would call your grade school level, first grade, second grade, third grade, we are ahead of all other race of kids in our development. The minute black children, particularly black males in particular, get into the traditional grade school where you're now told to shut up, sit in a seat, sit in a room that's a white room that's designed to sedate you, because we as black people, we respond to color, which is why when we learn at home, how do most black kids learn at home? We're interactive in our learning, right? We're interactive. How do they teach you the ABCs when you were in elementary school? You sung them. A, B, C, D, E, F. Because when you sing things, it gets into your self-conscious, right? Now, when black children are in these schools where you're told to shut up, don't be interactive in your learning, be quiet, what happens to black children, sister? We get what? Labeled as what?
Oh, ADHD.
Well, no, not only that, we get labeled as problem childs. So they start putting us in special ed. They start saying that this black young man is hyperactive. Watch out for those labels they put on us. When I was a little kid, they would do things in the classroom like turn your desk around and have you look at the wall and say, oh, you're the bad one, right? I've even had the educational system was not good to me, sister. I had white teachers say that I would never go to college. Well, yes, I did go to college. I had white teachers saying I wouldn't accomplish anything. I could. I had white teachers saying that I couldn't learn. My mom proved them wrong when she would work with me at home. Okay. I had a different style of learning. And the Eurocentric style of learning is that you have to be quiet, sit in your seat, and you got to follow this kind of instruction. And the way Black kids learn is totally different. I submit to you that this problem became a reality once we integrated into this society and start sending our kids to go to school with white folks. And how you think people, how you think somebody who doesn't like you going to teach your kids? Okay.
I mean, that's what Malcolm said. and you know, this is an issue I'm also passionate about. I mean, as far as Federation of African Liberation, my position right now is Minister of Liberation of African Children. Understanding how the education system works. It really is created, the education system is created as a way to integrate us into their system. It's created as a means that we identify more with our oppressor more than we identify with ourselves, which is why when I look back at the things that I was taught, I mean, I was taught European history, European philosophy, European. I had to do my own research to learn African history. And this was, you know, I had an African-American history class in college, but there was the only one offered. You have to look out for your own history in order to learn about yourself. So I think the education system is such a big conspiracy. And I agree with you that our children, you know, they're so vital and important, which is why they try to ingrain them with white nationalism from such a young age. But the system is such a conspiracy because not only do they teach us the history of the oppressor so that we identify with the oppressor, but then we get into things such as teacher expectation. When you do research, you find out that the big issue with white, you know, it's mostly white females that are teachers, white females teaching Black children, is there are implicit biases in those people. And teacher expectation, it turns out to be one of the most significant factors to determine what's going to happen to a kid. Because when you expect more out of your student, you're willing to bring more out of them. There are studies that say that teachers, when they label kids in their minds, when they say that, okay, this kid is this kid is that, this kid's a problem child, that has a significant effect on whether or not that child will graduate. So it's a complete conspiracy to allow your oppressor to educate your children. I believe that, as you said, a lot of these problems came about with integration. Of course, prior to integration, the schooling situation wasn't ideal for African people, but there were some independent Black schools that were appearing. Now we are essentially faced with the question, are we going to go to public school? Are we going to go to a charter school? Are we going to go to a private school? I think charter schools, from what I've observed, if you get the right people in the charter school, as far as there's a lot of schools that I visited, especially when I was in law school, there's a lot of schools that I visited that actually did impress Black pride into the children. And that depends on the individual. It can be a 50-50 game, really. But the private school education, that's where you really get maximum influence. You have some people, I forget the brother's name, but there's a brother out in Chicago who has a number of private schools where he's teaching his African children, and the kids are coming out exceptionally. And he has the ability to do that because when you're not a part of the public school system, you don't have the same requirements as far as having to listen to what the government says or having to meet curriculum guidelines. And I also believe you don't have to do standardized testing. So all of these things create a system where our children are not getting, I like what Dr. Amos Wilson said. They're not educating our children to be competitive with white children. Well,
let me just say this, sister. One of the problems that really bothers me is that white people tend to raise their kids to become captain of industry, to be lawyers, doctors, to own the damn football team and the basketball team, while Black people in general, I don't want to put a blanket statement on our people, but in general, we tend to spend more time with getting our kids to be trained in sport and play, football, basketball. Ooh, I just hope he get that scholarship, you know?
Yeah, no, and that's true. I mean, that's another point Dr. Amos Wilson made, is if we were to, I forget what side of the brain, it's the left side versus the right side, and the things that we do affect the side of the brain that is not necessarily going to give you logic, going to give you critical reasoning. If seen and understood that African people created this algebra, this geometry, these things that we are told are not for Black kids. If we understood that we actually were the creators of that, I think that would change our reality as far as what we think we can accomplish. I'll say for me, even it was a very big leap of faith for me to even say, okay, I'm going to go into law, because I've never grew up seeing lawyers. I never felt like I was encouraged to do that as far as the education system. And I think the thing with Black parents is, like you said, white parents, they intentionally put their children inside of a situation. You're going to have to be this. I think we're a little bit too do what makes you happy in our community, and less emphasizing, okay, even if you're not going to become an entrepreneur, you need to know how to be one. Even if you're not going to become a scientist, you need to know how to do this. I think we allow our children to kind of find their way instead of giving them the structured guidance that they need if they're going to be competitive with European children.
Okay. Let me, sister, I have another dynamic question to ask you, but just for the sake of respect for your time, I know it's, 4th of their lie day. What's your time like so far? So I can be.
I'm still okay for now.
Okay, let me go ahead and give a little love to folks in the chat room, and I have a very dynamic question to ask you coming up next. I want to say what's up and love to Brenda Johnson. We got True Royal Family in the house here. Definitely love the fact that she's with us. We got True Royal Family with us. We got Oyapo's in the house. And I want to thank you again, Brother Oyapo. You made this possible for me to connect with Sister Afrikan-Esq. I love that name, by the way. And after this is over, sister, I'm gonna make a beautiful thumbnail with your picture on it. If you had a chance to check out my channel, one of the things I'm very proud of is my thumbnails, and I love doing the thumbnails. So I'm gonna send you a beautiful thumbnail to go along with this today. But I want to thank everybody. We got Millionaire Nation, Ron James in there, Mr. Minister. Welcome, Mr. Minister. You must be new to the channel. Make sure you share, subscribe, and everybody in the chat room, share this in your social media. I talk about this a lot. When I watch your programs, I always put it in my social media so that we can all build our channels up, build up what we're doing here. We got Kashmir G in the house, King Hebrew. Thank you, King Hebrew. Minnie Doll, welcome. M. Mitch, welcome. And Be Fabulous. Be Fabulous. I love this sister, Afrikan-Esq. She's very positive, sister. Love her. She's out of Detroit. There's a few folks in there that I haven't. Let's see. Ron, Ray, Alexander, thank you. And feels like my computer over here is kind of freezing a little bit, so I'm having a hard time strolling up and down a little bit, folks. But everybody out there that I haven't had a chance to give a little love to, believe me, I know you're supportive of the program. Oh, Nicole Ali has just come on in. Good to see you, sister. We was up last night burning the midnight oil on the 4th of July program. And we got August Dreams in there, Bon, and I know there's other folks coming in that are in there. Sister, let me ask you a question. I do my research. I need you to give me your perspective on France.
Well, France is the biggest colonialist as far as explicit colonialism. So we know that America and China, those are the ones that probably have the most expansive empire. But as far as what France does in its former colonies, it's very explicit in how they construct government, how they really still do rule over the people. So one thing is that a lot of people don't know that former African colonies, and that includes Togo, that includes, oh gosh, I don't want to mention, last time I listed a bunch of countries that weren't actually French colonies, yeah. But Togo is one that we're really fighting for. Okay. I believe Senegal, Ivory Coast, these are countries that were former colonies of France. These countries are still required to have CFA francs, which are the currency of the the French bank. They are still required to use French military. They are required to give a significant portion of any money that comes into those African countries. They have to put it into the French reserve. They have to ask for permission to withdraw that money. There's just a number of things that France is requiring these African leaders to do. And so it's like really explicit colonialism. They're not even trying to hide the fact that they're colonizing these countries. So the ironic thing is that France has given the people the view that they're such a human rights proponent, that they love the African people. I encourage anyone, if you haven't seen this video of the Ghana president telling his people that, you know, the French president standing right next to him, and he is saying, you know, we're no longer going to keep getting aid from Europe. We can't be dependent on Europe. And if you've seen the face of the French president, you see that he was not having it. Hearing this African man talk about independence from France, you're going to realize that these people are very much entrenched in Africa. And the former president of France even said it. Without Africa, France would basically be cast into darkness. So because of that, FAL, we are advocating a boycott of all French products in order to bring awareness to the fact that this is the worst, most severe colonialism happening in Africa. And it's from these people who say that they're such great humanitarians.
Well, like I agree with everything you were saying. Like I was mentioning earlier, that was one of the reasons how World War I broke out. France was one of the other countries that had a foothold. And let me give you, are you familiar with, let me just say this. Most of us living in America don't realize that we owe a debt of great gratitude to the Haitian Revolution. If it had not been for the Haitians, in the spirit of Ogun, driving the French out, causing the French to go damn near broke, which caused them to do what? The Louisiana Purchase. And this is what people don't understand always. The Louisiana Purchase was not just what we call Louisiana today. If you do your history, it was the whole middle half of the country, going all the way up the Mississippi, down north and south, all the way into what we call Canada, which is one reason why you've got French-speaking people in Canada. They controlled the whole central middle half of the damn country. And if it had not been for the Haitians driving them out, we would not have what we call the United States today. We would not have the country comprised as it is today if it was not for the Haitians. Those very Haitians whose ancestors fought. And we got Haitians that are in limbo right now between Mexico and the United States, because in 2010, when they had the earthquake, some of the Haitian brothers and sisters were told that they would get some safe passage into the United States. And the United States, along with, reneged on this. I think Obama was trying to do something to help them. It all got shuffled down the street, down the road, when then Trump came in and he really jacked it all up. And now you've got Haitians that are in limbo over there between Mexico and the United States, who migrated out of Mexico. Jobs dried up in Mexico, went into South America, through Central America, and now they're in limbo over there. And we got Elijah McCummings crying about anything but that's black. You got black folks going homeless in Los Angeles. We're done deal in California. Said that last night. And we don't hear any of our black Miss Leadership class talking about black issues that are affecting black people, but yet we got people that want us to cook and clean and cake for them. And when black people get killed, like Brother Rose and the young man in Pittsburgh, he got shot, killed, and they gave the damn police officer just a damn fine or whatever. Okay, he got released without any bail, and you don't hear any of these immigrant groups coming out in droves to support us. Okay, I think Univision owns The Root, if I'm not mistaken. One of these publications. When has the damn Univision had a press conference saying we're tired of what's happening to our black brothers and sisters in America? No, you don't hear it. But then we got black politicians running around cooking and caking for these DACA issues. They got nothing to do with black folks in America, and we're catching hell all over the world. I had to go into my diatribe there, sister, because I'm very passionate about it, very angry about it, and about what's happening. But yeah, we owe the Haitians a debt of gratitude, but yet you never hear anybody talk about this history and really tell it like it is. My God. I went into a diatribe there. Let me see. Where, if you don't mind, where are you based out of?
I'm in Newark.
Newark, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Oh, I brought this up too, sister. I was telling people last night as another quiz. Okay, let's go back to school here. Let's go back to school here now. Hit the bell. Come into class, everybody. All right. I'm going to see if everybody knows in the chat room. The battle between the North and the South was all BS because they're both coins of this. They're both individuals, both monsters of the same damn coin. I told everybody, what was the last state in the Union that ended slavery?
I thought it was Maryland.
Come on, get some butts in class. No. It's okay. I'm gonna give you another clue. It's in the North. See, this just shows you.
I mean, I'm gonna say New Jersey.
Yes, New Jersey. Yes. Oh, celebration time. And we got thunder for your ass. Woo. She did it. And I want to remind everybody, make sure you watch out for those jackal-leg preachers. Listen, sister, it was New Jersey. This is what people don't realize. Remember, Malcolm X said that he considers anything below Canada.
Yeah.
I had this perfect quote, the South. Do you know that black folks, as we were running to the North, thinking that, oh, it's going to be better than the South. Here you got New Jersey, which was the last state in this union we call union. I don't know what the hell that means. We're not unified. Neely Fuller says, Jr. says that if we were truly a United States, that we would be united as a people and people would be treated properly, which we're not. So we can't be united. That's a fallacy. But New Jersey was the last place in which they ended slavery. They still had a slave system going on in New Jersey when it was ending all throughout the country, technically, okay? But it never really ended because black folks went right out of slavery, shackle slavery, into the slavery of sharecropping. You're familiar with sharecropping, right, sister?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it was New Jersey. Yes, right. New Jersey Shore.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. That was one of the last states to end it. And I think Brazil was the last country they were the last country to end slavery. They were keeping it steadfast very quickly. And then Mexico ended their slave system, which is why they told white folks to get the hell out of the Rio Grande, get the slaves out of here, which is one of the reasons why the Alamo broke out. See, they don't tell you about that history, that Mexico did not want the slaves being brought over there because there's an organization called the Knights of the Golden Circle, which is a secret organization where white people knew in the South that they were going to lose the war, and now they were about to set up their slave operations into Mexico. And Mexico said, get the hell out of here with it, okay? A lot of people don't know that Mexico had two generals that are responsible for their revolution. Two generals that were black. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
And you have black people that were slaves were brought to Mexico, and black people, when they came out of slavery in Mexico, they created their own little township in Mexico. This is true. This is true facts. Look it up, folks. Look it up. I think Dr. Gates did a video about this, and he talked about that in his video. But anyway, wow, sister. Let me see. What else can I ask you with the time that we do have? I want to be respectful of your time. Oh, this is what I want to ask you. And this is no dish to anybody. When we talked about education, Dr. Umar Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I remember he got ambushed on the Roland Polly Martin, who was dancing around, buck dancing with Hillary Clinton in her hot sauce bag. I got sick. I'm tired of that. He said that he has about $700,000. I know people have their various views of Dr. Umar Johnson. Is he a doctor really, or is he not a doctor? Is he really for the black community, or is he not? My question is, I'm more concerned about the school. With the 700,000, my theory is that a lot of times as black men, we have a sort of we sort of have an attitude where we want to live to see the fruits of our labor. We want to be alive to be able to pop our collars and say, look at what I built, right? But we have to keep in mind when Morehouse was built, and we know that the white people were involved in the black colleges. They were originally designed for the mulattoes when the Thomas Jefferson were getting in that in those slave quarters trying to get that butane, as you know what I mean. And Dr. Umar Johnson, I think, like many other black men, we want to see the fruits of our labor. We want to be able to pop our collar and say, look at what I built, because we have egos as men. We have super egos, okay? And all of us have egos. But the fact of the matter is, black men and black women, we have to be willing to understand that we may not see or be alive to see the fruits of our labor. We may have to sacrifice and do whatever we can to make something become a reality, and we may not be alive to pop our collars. Dr. Umar Johnson may need to consider using that money to build a small school. That does not mean it's going to be a boarding school. It may not have all the bells and whistles that he wants, but if he could just start small and build from there, maybe someday he won't be alive, but maybe someday the Dr. Umar Johnson Institute, okay, I'm making up names for it, could be around when he's no longer here and be a big university, a big college, a school for black people. But he may not be alive to see it be a boarding school. He may not be alive to see it be what a Morehouse has become or a Howard. We gotta realize that as black people that we're not gonna be alive for every goddamn thing.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I actually think that recently, and I haven't I used to watch his videos almost every week. I haven't been watching them almost every week anymore. But I do remember a recent video where he did say that he was no longer doing the boarding school, I believe. I don't want to, say what someone else said, but I believe he said he's now looking to do a private school and start and eventually develop into a boarding school. So, which I thought was a very good move. The thing with us, anytime we try to do things independent of white money, it's not going to happen overnight. You have to really start somewhere. I'm a big advocate as far as independent education. If you are someone who wants to teach African children, start off with a mentorship program, an after-school program, where you can even bring their classroom material, their history stuff that they learned in school, and point out the contradictions to them, so that when they do go back into the white school system, they could call out their teacher or call out the textbook for misstating history. So you could start off with supplemental education, where you're teaching them after school, this is what the truth is, and so that they can become prepared in the world, because to me, that's just as powerful, being able to understand the contradictions from a young age. So yeah, I do agree. We have to start off small whenever we're doing things, because we're literally going against an entire institution that's been developed for over, how old is America? Over 200 years, correct?
This is a young country. This is what I would say too, sister. Dr. Umar Johnson and many others like him, you have to be willing to realize that you can't tell your enemies everything you're going to do. You want to give them what I would call vanilla ice cream. Give them the vanilla stuff. When it comes to the real hardcore stuff, we have to do that privately, because I believe that one of the reasons why he's probably had some problems getting the school that he wants off the ground is because the enemy is going to do everything they can to stop him, especially if he wants to do it without their capital. Okay. Yeah. They're going to do everything to stop you. So sometimes black people, we have to learn, and I have to learn this too. We have to learn to be more stout. We have to learn the art of war. Here I am giving a plug for the book and ain't getting a dime out of it in promotions. But we have to be stealth in our actions and slow, and learn that we can talk about all these grand ideas that we have, but some things we need to keep it hush hush in a private situation amongst those that are the players. I do believe that one reason why Dr. Umar Johnson has struggled to get the kind of money and support that he wants from black people, and I know he's been critical of our people in terms of giving him the money that he needs for the school, is the fact that we have to keep in mind that black people, we don't have generational wealth. And we do have a problem that we suffer from, which is called, we beg for what we need and we go and get what we want. So if I want Nike shoes, if I want the latest car, I'm going to go get what's hot, because that's what's being marketed to me, right? But when I need computers for my daughter, oh, my daughter needs a computer for school.
Right.
Please.
I need a quote.
Please, Mr. Black politician, please, great white president, can you please put some programs in our community so we can get computers? Meanwhile, I'm driving around in a Benz and I've got Nike shoes and I'm buying LeVar Ball's $495 shoes, which is nothing.
Right.
It costs $10 to produce in China. Such foolish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Sister, as we get close to, because what I'm going to do after you depart, sister, I always do a Q&A, and I bring brothers and sisters on from the chat room onto a panel, and we go into further discussion on these issues. Is there anything that you want the audience out here to really know about you, the Pan-African movement, why it's relevant, why we need to not sleep on it, why we not be critical, criticizing it? Anything that you can give us that will gravitate our attention towards the realities of Pan-Africanism?
I think, number one, we do have to continue to educate ourselves, and education is a process. I'm learning something new every day on Black liberation. I mean, I think that the thing that upsets me more is when we don't question things that happened in the past and try to do better. You have people who are still asking for civil rights, even seeing that civil rights doesn't necessarily mean Black liberation. The thing with Pan-Africanism, you mentioned the Haitian Revolution. There's a lesson to be learned in that. Haiti was actually able to completely eliminate the white man from Haiti. But guess what? After that revolution, because Africa wasn't free, because the other Caribbean states weren't free, the US and France, they were able to choke Haiti economically by putting up blockades and putting a debt on them. So to understand why Pan-Africanism is so necessary, had African people been liberated when Haiti got their independence, we would have been able to put support in for that movement. So the idea that we can achieve liberation as an island here in America, or as an island out in the Caribbean, as an island anywhere, or as one country, we have to understand that it's absolutely paramount that we're not just fighting for ourselves in our locations, but also we're fighting for ourselves internationally. This is the same thing that happened with Zimbabwe. They completely got rid of the colonists. They completely got their land back. But guess what? Because Zimbabwe was an island, they were able to basically overthrow that regime. They were able to overthrow Gaddafi, even though Gaddafi was able to be a defiant Pan-Africanist leader. Anytime that we have individuals, Thomas Sankara, he was able to be overthrown. Anytime that we separate ourselves and don't see the having is the same, then we are susceptible to be taken out, because the thing you have to realize is that all this stuff that's happening as far as what European powers do, they might not agree on everything. They might not, they might go to war with each other every once in a while. But guess what? Whenever their interests align, they are able to come together and overthrow liberation movements. They were able to come together and overthrow Patrice Lumumba. That wasn't just Belgium. That was a couple of countries that came together and joined in that conspiracy to overthrow Lumumba. They're able to come together whenever their interests align. So if we understand that there's people who are, it's not just one country, we're not just going against the United States. As I said with the Togo situation, Togo's having a revolution right now, but if Togo is able to emancipate themselves from the regime, the corrupt regime that is in Togo, understand that becomes an incentive to do something to overthrow the people's efforts, because you can't have one country that's able to drive out colonialism and that not be a threat to colonialism everywhere. You can't have one country that gets reparations from colonists and then the other countries don't have a say to say, hey, you did the same thing to me. So we absolutely, in America, we cannot get liberation by ourselves, and anywhere else in the diaspora. To think that we can do this as individuals. I just say, the biggest thing I want to say to people is study history, study what did work, and study what didn't work. And when you study what didn't work, you'll realize that the times where the colonists were the most afraid of what was going to happen was whenever people were talking about international problems. They were okay, not to say they were okay, but they were tolerant of Malcolm when he was, you know, focused on just the United States. But when Malcolm went overseas and went to meet with African leaders and was saying, hey, we all need to come together, that's whenever they had to oust him. Whenever Garvey came in and said, hey, we're all going to come together, that's when they had to oust them. So understand the biggest threat is not us individually. The biggest threat is us internationally, because the United States as well as Europe depend for their livelihood on maintaining their dominance over African people.
Which is why I believe they don't want us to be getting our passports. Now I have my passport right here. They don't want us getting passports because they don't want us leaving. They're very concerned about us. As much as we think that they don't like us here in America, which they don't, they still don't want us leaving, because we're sort of they see us as their possessions. And people, we have to realize as Black people in America, we were only emancipated. We didn't really get true freedom. We were emancipated. And out of that emancipation, they still see us as 3/5 human being. It's still on the books. They still see us as that. And that is why I cannot celebrate 4th of their lie today and get all cozy up into it. Let me ask you this before you go too, sister. What is your opinion about Julian Malani and what's going on in South Africa as they're saying, we want white people out of here. We want our land back, land that was stolen. Same thing that's going on in Namibia. And there's a brother in Namibia, I did a video on, I haven't dropped it yet. He's talking about that in Namibia, that he thinks that Black people over there are about to do a riot on white folks because they can see white people right next to them living good while they're living in shanty type towns. And something is going to explode, something is going to give. What is your opinion on these issues?
Yeah, I mean, South Africa is, to me, like our closest cousin as far as America. Although apartheid was kind of the opposite situation where you have a small white minority oppressing a Black majority, as far as having up until this day the identifiable oppressor, they have that. And so it doesn't surprise me that in South Africa, of all places, you have a party, the EFF, that is saying, no, we're not going to take this situation. When you study South Africa, what you see is the dynamics that are happening to this day are basically a continuation of apartheid. The same people that owned the property in apartheid still own it today.
Yes.
Mandela, and you know, I like Mandela for some reasons. I don't like to just, you know, say, oh, this person was just horrible. Like, you can agree with people in some ways and disagree with them in other ways. When it comes to Mandela, you know, I think that he was definitely a type of liberation leader, but I don't think that he was the type that South Africa needed. Ironically, I think his wife was the one that was actually about getting things done, because Mandela was essentially compromised for his country.
He was
he compromised, and he said, well, we're not going to ask you to give back our wealth and give back the land. Well, what are you asking? You're asking for a continuation of the same system, even though, okay, well, they can't shoot us for nothing, but you're asking for the same economic relationship to continue. And that's the thing that we have to realize. I hate when people say that we have progress in America, we have progress in Africa, we have progress in South Africa. You can't measure progress as far as how white people treat Black people. That's not how you measure progress. To measure progress, you have to start with why did this thing originally happen? Slavery did not happen because whites just hated Black people. Slavery did not happen because whites just wanted to do evil. Slavery happened because they seen in us that we could benefit them economically if they were to subjugate us to them. That was why it happened. So in order to say that there was progress, there has to be a change in the exploitation relationship. If we're still just as exploited as we were 400 years ago, then the purpose of racism, the purpose of slavery and white supremacy is still intact. The same thing in South Africa. The purpose of apartheid was they wanted white ownership of the lands and they wanted white occupation of the industries. So that was the original purpose. They might not be doing it in a violent way they were. And if you research apartheid, it was horrible, the things that they were doing, the crazy crimes, the crazy ways that they would murder people, burning them alive and everything. It was crazy if you look at it in that way. But to say that there's progress in South Africa when they still control the land and they still control the industries is ridiculous. And that's what I think Malema is saying when he says that, first of all, you can't tell us that, well, you know, okay, the way that we took the land in South Africa to begin with was wrong, but you know, now it's legal. So you can't just come back and take it. Well, no, the way that you took it was illegal. And the same way, I seen an interview what he did recently. He said, you know, if I steal your car and, you know, I say, well, you know, it's mine now and, you know, you have to pay for it back. No, you still took it illegally. So I still have a right to that car, even if you took it and you think that it's yours now. So, you know, I think the EFF is, you know, I would love to see more EFFs rise up throughout Africa. And I think that's what we really need is radical political parties that are really, in my opinion, you know, I think that the socialist ideology is the only way out of the capitalist system. And socialism just means that the people have to control the means of production. So more socialist parties, more parties that are about Black self-determination. I think that's going to be the only way really that we can get out of this situation. People who are going to call out the hypocrisies of, in South Africa would be the ANC, but just of the whole system, of the politicians, of the people who are not willing to confront white supremacy. So, you know, I really hope that he is successful in land expropriation without compensation. Is obviously the right thing to happen, and anyone who would say otherwise. I did a video on him a while back, and I had a lot of trolls from South Africa telling me how, you know, it's how are you going to ask for their land, blah, 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 blah. But when you really look at the logic, it's very hard to make that argument that they own or should maintain that land. It's the same thing as what the ironic thing is, a lot of people that are against land expropriation without compensation, they support Israel. Well, first of all, the Jews in Israel, we know, are not the original Hebrews, but we also know that they claim to be. So they're claiming that, hey, our ancestors inhabited this land, therefore we can have it back. How do you support that idea? But then whenever you have the people in South Africa saying, yes, this is our land, we want it back, you're going to basically say that they're stealing. And if it's wrong one place, then it has to be wrong everywhere.
Exactly.
So that's just another one of the contradictions of, you know, of racism, of white supremacist ideology, the fact that anytime Black people are demanding control of their resources, control of their own destiny, and really demanding just basic human rights, they're going to be called radical, they're going to be called militaristic, they're going to be called terrorist, and that's just the reality of how white supremacy operates.
Okay. Wow. Woo! Interesting, interesting. Wow. How you recently traveled over to Africa? How long ago was that?
Since July, so a little over a month ago.
Okay. What other countries are you planning to? I've heard some positive things about Kenya. I know I have a few people at my job that I work with that are from Kenya, from Nigeria. I heard Kenya is a little bit more developed as a country. They have a little bit more developed infrastructure. That's what I've heard. What other areas do you want to hit?
Honestly, anywhere. You know, I'm hoping that I can develop more connections with people in those regions, because if I have that ability, you know, to connect with people, then definitely anywhere where African people are. You know, I want to learn more about the continent. I want to learn more about the people. So yeah, any opportunities I have in the future, I'm not picky. I would love to, but I think like if I had to pick one, because of the similarity between South Africa and America, I would really like to just be there and just understand the atmosphere over there, and just for comparative purposes. And, you know, I know when people go to South Africa, they usually stay in the white side of town. That wouldn't be my desire at all. But yeah, I would love to have just be able to see that comparative analysis, I guess.
Okay. Well, sister, I'm trying to think what other question I can ask you. We've gone over a lot today, this evening. So much. Well, can you remind everybody where they can find you? I'm going to put your link of your channel in the chat room, which I've done a few times here. I'm going to put it in there again. Let everybody know where they can find you, your social media, everything that you have that you feel comfortable letting out.
Yeah, so it's Afrikan-Esq on YouTube. I also have a Facebook page just devoted to the to my videos, and that's just Afrikan-Esq on Facebook. As far as I have a group called Pan-African News Press, and that's really just to share news information pertaining to the diaspora, because we're not going to get that from a 24-hour news cycle. In addition, the organization that we started, the Federation of African Liberation, we have a page on Facebook, and we also have a group for people who want to be supporters, even if you don't necessarily want to be a member. Yeah, that's, oh, and I'm also on Instagram, Afrikan-Esq, and on Twitter. So
do me a favor, sister, if you could do this. When we end this, I want you to send me an email or however you can message me with all this contact information. And the reason why is because when this video is over, I'm going to put all this information in the description. So I'm going to put the links to your organization, all that good stuff in the description of the video. And then I'm going to when I repackage the video again and put it back out, it'll have all that good stuff in there. I'm going to continue to viral the video as well so that it hits everywhere it can. We're actually on, I'm going to let everybody know out there in speaker.com. Thank you for also listening to us. Everybody in the chat room, we got my brother Big L. Big L's been with me from the very beginning. We got Sister Logan in there. I see we got Brother Duvian that's come in. Gamma Ray, what's up, Gamma Ray? What's up, S. Wiseman? Welcome. I'm going to do a little bit of a Q&A with some of the folks to come on the panel. We can talk a little bit. We kind of have a style way we do things here, Sister Afrikan-Esq. We do a little Q&A with folks. With that said, sister, I don't know. I know it's a Wednesday, 4th of their live day, and with your family, I'm sure, with your significant other. I want to thank you for being willing and gracing my platform here, our platform, and I want to thank you for allowing me to interview you and ask you these very important questions. I thought they were important questions, and letting people know who you are. Make sure everybody in the channel, make sure you check out Sister Afrikan-Esq. Subscribe to her channel. She's very dynamic. I've watched some of her materials over a period of time, and the sister is the truth. She speaks very, very well of our people. She's very much into pan-Africanism, and I think we should support any Black person, woman, man, child that's doing something that is positive. Okay, you may not particularly be a person that believes in Pan-African. Okay, you may not believe in it, or you may not know that much about it, but I'm saying to you, if we got a Black person who's doing something other than singing and dancing and shucking and jiving and getting on YouTube, arguing, we got a lot of stuff going on YouTube going on right now with people that are upset with each other. We got to stay away from that kind of stuff. I believe Millie Fuller Jr. said himself, if Black people have nothing positive to say to each other, we should stay the hell away from each other and only have constructive conversation, because we can be toxic towards each other when we bring that poison that we get, learned behavior that we get from living in American society. And I'm going to say it again, and you guys and everybody knows it. In America, we are culturally conditioned to see white as superior and Black as inferior. And as a manifestation of that cultural conditioning, we will marginalize, underestimate, and undervalue Black people. White people do it to us, and we as Black people do it to ourselves. With that said, sister, do you have any last words before we come to a conclusion of this interview?
Just thank you so much for having me. I had a good time.
I had a good time with you, but I'm going to let you know, I'm going to be watching your program. I will be sending you messages, sister. We'll have to do this again, get you back on. Have you been on, and I know you have. I know you've been on Brother Dynast's program, haven't you? Yeah. Okay, great. Because if you haven't, I was going to contact him and say, get this sister on. And God damn it, what's wrong with you, brother? And if Brother Dynast is listening out there, I love you, brother. Thank you, sister. And I'm going to be in contact with you over a period of time. We're going to get you back on to talk about all things that are African. It's African. It's Africa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Everybody, stay in the chat room. I'm going to make time for some Q&A. Thank you, sister. I love you for being with me, and we'll do this again. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you again.
All right. Thank you. Woo! Everybody stick around. Woo! That was a beautiful interview with Sister Afrikan-Esq. Woo! On the Information Man Show. But this is not possible without the audience out there supporting what we're doing. So we're going to have some time for some Q&A. I'm going to drop a link in the chat room. Woo! 4th of their live. Don't celebrate 4th of their live. I want to thank y'all last night because y'all made that video that I did go super viral. I mean, I was like, woo! A lot of views, a lot of likes. I want to thank you for letting that happen, letting that be possible. That cannot be possible without the family. King Hebrew, I'm going to mod you up, brother, because you've been supportive. King Hebrew. Everybody's going to get their mod up if you're very supportive of the program. Now, let me put a link in there for those who want to come onto the panel and talk. You heard the interview. I want to get your opinions about anything that's on your mind today as we celebrate 4th of their Lie Day. So let me go in here and pull out my link. True Royal Family sent me an email. Yes. True Royal Family made a good point, you know, that when you have a guest on your program, you got to respect their time. Don't go on too long, you know. And I was very respectful of Afrikan-Esq. I asked her several times what her time was like. I tend to do that. What is your time like, sister? What is your time like, brother? Because we don't want to use up all their time. They want to be with their family. They got things to do. But she was very gracious with her time, and I appreciate that. So let me go ahead, and I appreciate the Queen giving me that advice. But I think we were pretty good with our time. I think she was willing to, you know, the message can kind of be lost in the sauce when you go on too long. But Queen, True Royal Family, I thank you for your much needed advice. But I think it was, I think everything went well. And the sister was she was very hospitable with her time. Very intelligent sister. Now, whether you agree with Pan-Africanism or not, you cannot deny that the sister was intelligent. She knew what she was talking about, most definitely. Let me put this link in the chat room. I thank y'all for being here. And last night, man, y'all made last night beautiful. I believe that last night might have been my best program yet because we had a lot of people that were resonating. And be fabulous if you want to come on in too, sister. Come on in. Boom. There we go. Let me send you a link to the Google contact, Be Fabulous. Anybody that wants to come in and speak upon any issues on your mind this day, anything you got to say about the sister as well, is always welcome. Peace. Woo! Ooh, Be Fabulous, I'm going to send this to you. Be Fabulous, I just send you the link. Kendra, thank you, everybody. S. Wiseman, Brother Dubian, Home, Hood, Mistress, Reloaded. Thank you for getting them trolls out last night. True Royal Family says, my head hurts, Bum. I may not do my hangout later today. Oh, you doing a hangout later today? Come on, True Royal Family. We want that hangout. I want that hangout. I want to be able to kick back and listen to what you got to say today. Anyway, we got Expose the Fake Pro Black. Thank you for being here. Well, family, if nobody's going to come on board to the panel and talk to me, I think I'm just going to play my my theme video and call it a conclusion to the live stream. So I'm going to give it a minute, and if nobody wants to come on, we will call it conclusion for today, and I will enjoy anyone's live stream today that they have. Okay. I think I'm going to get ready to put on my theme photos and call it a quit. So I'm going to have the music playing with my theme photos. Check out the photos. Enjoy it. Talk to each other. I need some weed. True Royal Family said, I need some weed. She needs Mary Jane, baby. She needs Mary Jane. Yes. As you can see, I'm not an R&B singer. Bon Bon. I see Bon Bon. I see your brother Matthews. I see Matthew. Sunny Seas, what's going on? Kashmir. Woo! Like, I love the folks in here. Now let me put on my theme video, because nobody seems to want to come on the panel with me, and that's okay. I know folks are tired. People just probably want to relax, all that kind of stuff. What's up, Monet? Let me give you a little love here. Not saying your name correctly, but hey, we're going to work with it. Peace. There we go. Peace. All right, let me put on my my theme stuff here. All right, enjoy that, folks. Check out the photos. Check out the photos. I'm gonna keep it on for a little while before I put an end to everything. Ooh. Hey, what's up, Hank? Brother Hank. Big L. Stephanie, what's going on, Stephanie? Mr. C, welcome, Mr. C. Look at Al Sharpton looking like a fool. Woo! Everybody out there, thank you. From Brenda Johnson to Big L, Bon Bon, True Royal Family. True Royal Family, I think you should have your live stream. I would enjoy watching you today. So why don't you just try to get some rest? I don't want to tell you what to do, sister. Maybe get a little bit more rest and come on later tonight or something. You know, I want to see you on tonight. So do the best you can. Get some rest. See what you can do with your headache if you have one, so that we can enjoy your program tonight. Big L, what's going on? Big C, welcome here. Welcome here, brother. Nicole Ali, thank you for the stream info, man. It was great. No, Nicole, thank you. Nicole, we gotta do something together again very soon. Our thing about travel was classic, but we gotta do something else. So I'm going to be calling upon you. I'm just going to give you a private conversation, so we can put, or maybe it could be the Black inventors. We were talking about that, but we got to do something together again. We got to keep this thing going, keep this thing moving. Make sure you all support each other, subscribe to each other's channels. Make sure that you send each other's videos to your own social media. I do it for everybody that does content like this. I will take my phone. I will send your videos through my social media, so that you get more support. We got to build each other up. Some of us maybe not have been on here as long as someone like True Royal Family or Sister Lisa. So folks that have been on YouTube for some time, and they've been able to build their audience up over a long period of time. I've just been lucky because I do a hell of a job of trying to market what I'm doing. I feel I do a hell of a job of understanding the science of YouTube, how you do proper tagging of your videos, how you do proper thumbnailing, how you use all the bells and whistles on YouTube, on the platform that they give you, how you create the metadata that you need to get your material to people, how to utilize the social media properly in terms of marketing and promoting what you're doing, getting involved in different groups, and so on and so forth, which is why the white boys on YouTube have this down to a science, and they collaborate with each other. We need to do more collaborations with each other. We need to do stuff where we shout each other out. Hell, I'm willing to wear a True Royal Family shirt and do videos and rock the shirt and say, True Royal Family, go support our channel. You know, I'm willing to rock shirts and merchandise for people. We got Black News coming into the chat room. Black News, welcome. Welcome, brother, to the channel. Make sure, and I've heard about you, Black News. I've checked out your program. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, Black News, and hit the bell for notification. I need your support, as I will be supporting and have been supporting your channel, brother. I get notifications every time. So Black News, brother, definitely support what we're doing here. So we should all be working together as conglomerates. I feel really bad about what's happening in the Black conscious movement when you have brothers going at each other. I'm not happy about what I'm seeing with Brother Sinetta. And I know Brother Poppy yesterday spoke his mind in terms of what he was not happy about videos being put out about his family. We can't be doing that. We got to stick together as a people. We can't be arguing with each other in public. We can't be going at each other. What's the sense of getting on YouTube or any platforms talking about you for liberation of Black people if we've got people in the Black conscious movement going at each other? I don't want to see that. I feel bad that it's happening. I just don't want to see it. But I know that sometimes people get fed up with what people are saying about them, and they lose their cool, and they say, I can't be cool anymore. And they have to say what's on their mind. And everyone has a right to do that. So I want to thank everybody. I'm going to play this music one more time, and then I'm going to push the button to end the stream. And I want to wish everybody a happy 4th of their lie day. And when I say happy 4th of their lie, don't celebrate it. Understand that they lied to us. They have been no good to us. Do not celebrate the beast holiday. Celebrate yourself, Black people. Celebrate us, which is why we need people to do live streams today. Let's celebrate us. Let's make this a day of our celebration, not their celebration. That's why we need True Royal Family to get her butt up and do a live stream today once she can get some rest. We need anybody to do a live stream today. Nicole, what are you doing? Do a live stream. Let's celebrate each other. Let's not celebrate things, the 4th of their live day. So once again, I'm going to play the music one more time. Let it run through. Hit the stop. Let y'all talk to each other. Thank you. We need more streams today. We need less 4th of July and more. Look at Al Sharpton. Look at that. Now that's supposed to be a Black leader, and he taking selfies all up in his shorts, showing his little bony legs. That's what we got as leadership, folks. That's what we got for leadership. He taking selfies like he a teenager. Okay?
isolate creatures.
I want to thank everybody out there for supporting the channel. I want to thank you once again. I'm encouraging that everybody do a live stream, those that can, so that we can celebrate ourselves and not this 4th of their Lie Day. That's my proposal. That's what I'm saying. I want to thank everybody again. And with that said, you know what I'm going to play next as we end this. And here we go.
Let this be a lesson that black folks need to be codified. We've got to stop cooing, love dancing, bootlegging, performing.